it's remarkable to me the lack of understanding. Like Nova Scotia has, and I'm not sure on the exact numbers, but I believe it's around $12 billion is their budget. Almost $4 billion of that comes from Alberta. What's going to happen to Nova Scotia when we leave?
All right, let's talk about the money, shall we? Because that's really what this is all about. Alberta, in this communist dream of a program called equalization, sends billions of dollars every year to prop up other provinces. Nova Scotia, for example, gets about 25 to 30% of its entire provincial budget from equalization payments. Translation? Alberta's oil money is literally paying for the roads, hospitals, and yes, their anti-oil activism too. These same provinces that scream net zero and dirty oil have no problem cashing those Alberta funded checks. The reality is, if Alberta does end up walking away from this lopsided arrangement, it wouldn't be Albertans who would suffer economically. It would be the provinces who can't balance a budget without Alberta's wallet. Independence isn't just a political movement. For Alberta, it would actually be a financial upgrade, to say the least. If you support these videos, please like and subscribe. I appreciate it.
Why tie the issue of getting a commitment for an oil pipeline to national unity?
Well, you have to understand just how damaged Alberta is by the fact that we didn't get pipelines built. If we had built Northern Gateway, if we'd built Keystone and we'd built Energy East, we'd have 2.5 million barrels more per day of production, which is $55 billion a year worth of GDP value, which is worth $17 billion to my government alone and about an equal amount to the federal government. So this is not just an ideological argument. It's not just a minor disagreement. Oil is by far the most valuable export for Canada. Any of the projects that you will see on the ultimate list, I will tell you that a bitumen pipeline will be by far the greatest benefit to all of Canada. That's why we're going to continue to push for it, because it's a good project. It's good for our country. There's $9 trillion worth of value in discoverable and achievable reserves right now. And so why would you leave that in the ground? No other country in the world would, and we shouldn't either.
Many Albertans are done with diplomacy. They're tired of the Premier asking them to give the new government a chance, when it's literally the same Liberals of the last 10 years. Tired of almost having to beg for the approval of a pipeline project. Pipelines that the entire country would benefit from, by the way. And that's the irony in all of this. Why stay part of a country where you have no leverage and your voice ain't heard? What do you even have to lose when you already are losing billions to a system designated to keep it that way? That's why more Albertans are shifting from negotiations to action. They want concrete steps. Alberta's own pension plan, its own police force, control over its own immigration, just like Quebec enjoys. No questions asked. And let's not forget Quebec, the loudest hater of Alberta's energy. They call it dirty oil. But guess what? They're happy to take the equalization payments that dirty oil funds. Funny how that works. There's only one way to truly fix the situation for Alberta, and that's independence. Nothing else. Watch this Quebec politician run his entitled mouth about Alberta's oil in the House of Commons the other day.
While the prairies are burning, the premiers are in Saskatoon talking about dirty oil pipelines and abandoning environmental assessments. That's Canadian identity today, Mr. Speaker. A Liberal Prime Minister who talks to oil companies before talking to his provincial counterparts. Provinces that isolate Quebec to force it to accept a pipeline. All these people keep telling us that it's a matter of Canadian unity and of national interest. Does the Minister of Canadian Identity also believe that Canadian unity and the national interest mean building pipelines while the prairies burn?
Let's all have a laugh, shall we? Because nothing is funnier than an entitled Quebec politician wagging their fingers at Alberta, calling our energy dirty oil, while their socialist programs run on the money that oil generates. Dental care, child care, transit subsidies, you name it. All squeaky clean, apparently, so long as it's Alberta footing the bill. But that's typical. The oil is dirty, but the money seems to be clean enough for them, I guess. Meanwhile, Alberta is quietly but firmly laying the groundwork for an upcoming independence referendum, and some supporters are saying not to rush it, to take a year to educate the public, explain the pension plan shift, replacing federal programs, controlling borders, drafting a real constitution for Alberta. The goal is not to wing it, the goal is to win it. Because if Alberta does go, it won't be because of a tantrum. It'll be because we finally chose logic, sovereignty, and self-respect over Canada's dysfunctional situation.
So I'm happy about the timeline that the Premier announced today, because those are all proper questions. And I don't know the answers to some of them. And we need to bring the people together to have good discussions about what form of government a new independent Alberta would have, what form of laws we would apply, how we would deal with borders and immigration, all of these 7 or 8 things that the federal government does, because it's only that many, and canvass the options and then build a model as to what it would look like so that Albertans can make an informed choice, that they know what they're leaving and know what they're going into. And that's going to take a year. And we have a year now. So I think that's good.
Ottawa doesn't speak for guys like me. Alberta does. I used to fly a Canadian flag, but now I fly the Alberta flag. It actually stands for something. I'm proud to fly the flag of a place that still promises a future for my kids.
That's right. We got to dance to our own tune. And we got to fight for our independence. Because you and I know Alberta would be much better off being its own country.
But one of the things, even in the more moderate folks that I've encountered from Central and Eastern Canada, their lack of understanding of the basic roles and responsibilities of governments and who does and pays for what is remarkable. People will come after me on Twitter and say, well, how are you going to pay for your health care then? Well, we already pay for our health care, and we net pay at least $20 billion a year to Ottawa that we don't get back. So we'll actually have $20 billion laying around in our pocket to maybe spend a little more on healthcare. Thank you very much. People think that the Crown land in Alberta means federal Crown. It doesn't. The only federal land in Alberta is 4 national parks, 4 military bases, and a number of First Nations reserves under the treaties. And when you combine that all together, the First Nations reserves only 1.31% of the land base, and then the federal component is 20. Some people think that the federal government owns the oil and gas here, all owned by the province. The water. The only thing the federal government really has a responsibility for in Alberta is like running a passport office, and they can't even do that. So it's remarkable to me, the lack of understanding. Like Nova Scotia has, and I'm not sure on the exact numbers, but I believe it's around $12 billion is their budget. Almost $4 billion of that comes from Alberta. What's going to happen to Nova Scotia when we leave? Right? And if we leave, where Ontario's now going to have to pay that money. And the fellow from the Toronto Star won't be so smug at that point. The reality is that Alberta is a tremendous asset to Canada. We fund so much of Canada's activities. We ask so little, and instead we've just been harassed.
If you enjoy these videos, please subscribe and press the notifications bell so you never miss our daily updates. Subscribing is free, and you can always unsubscribe later if you change your mind. Thank you to all our channel members. I couldn't do this without your generosity. See you on the next one. Peace.